Hi class, welcome to our weekly chat. I apologize, it is very early in the morning, but let's chat. Okay, where we were last week, we all completed the APA takeaway quiz. As hopefully you've noticed by now, I've gone back through and adjusted the score. I believe that questions 27 and 29 were keyed incorrectly, and questions 30 and 31 were not automatically graded by the quiz. So I've gone back through, made those adjustments. Most of you should have seen a significant bump in your score as a result of those changes. If you did not see a significant bump in your score, that is because when I went back through, you had selected an answer that was definitely not correct for either questions 27 or 29, and you may have done questions 30 or 31 incorrectly. If you did questions 30 or 31 incorrectly, the correct citation was put into that additional comment section, so you should be able to see how that should actually look. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Yes, let me know if you have any questions about that quiz. Okay, let's move on to the methods section. As I said previously, I highly recommend that you do that methods section as a group, because the methods section each group member does needs to match so the survey questions can match up, so the pre-IRB application can all match up together. Okay, the methods section, there is quite a lot of information about that in the announcements. There's a whole separate video about that posted on January 30th. So late last week, there was a whole separate video posted on the methods section. If you have any questions about the methods section, I highly recommend you go back in and watch that video, because I don't want to make you watch the same thing twice. A couple of things: your methods section must include the participant selection, the study design, data collection materials, which is referencing to the survey, and procedures, which is what you plan to do to collect your data. 2 ways to collect the data, 2 ways that I highly recommend, well, 3 ways that I recommend. 1, if you are surveying people in general, I would send it out to your social media contacts, post it on Facebook, Instagram, one of those ways, or multiple of those ways that you feel people access social media. This is a really good way to collect a lot of information quickly. Yes, there are flaws with this convenient sample method, but for the purpose of this class, we're trying to collect data fairly quickly so that you can move on to the next step, which is the data analysis, and then you can draw conclusions based on that data. Note what the drawbacks are of collecting data in this way, of sampling this way. That's fine. Note the drawbacks and then move forward with it. One of the other ways is you could post to one of the BYU Idaho student groups on Facebook. Students have been really successful in the past doing this. Just make sure that you are allowed to do that, because some of those BYU Idaho student groups do not allow you to post surveys for a class. So make sure that you select the one that does allow you to do that if you want to survey BYU Idaho students. And then the final way is you can do it in person on campus. If you do choose to do that, I highly recommend that you create a flyer with a QR code, or somehow have this QR code for people to scan. They just scan it with their phone and it takes them directly to the survey. If you have questions about that, we can talk about it. And that is only if you decide what you really want to do is survey BYU Idaho students on campus. Keep in mind that that means you will only be surveying students on campus as opposed to both online and on campus. But it's a way to go if you have students, or if you have group members on campus who are willing to do that for you. I do not recommend a pen and paper survey, because then you have to go through and enter that data, and that is an extra step for you. It will take extra time, and there is a really high probability of data entry error. So if you are wanting an in-person survey, do the QR code, have people scan it, and just pull it up on their phone, because if you're using an electronic survey, it will just automatically put it into your spreadsheet for you. You can download the spreadsheet and then do all of your data analysis from there. So make sure that you talk about this as you're doing your methods section. Remember, you are welcome to write the methods section together. Everyone needs to turn in a separate copy. If you say that you wrote it together, that's fine. Note that somewhere in the additional comments when you submit it that it was written together. So if Turnitin catches it for plagiarism, I know, well, this was a group document. We'll ignore the plagiarism part. This section of the paper you are allowed to write together. You are not allowed to write the data analysis together, or the conclusions, the discussion and conclusions, but this section you are. And I recommend that you do it together. Okay, the other thing that we're doing this week is the survey questions. The survey is a really big deal. This is the only way that you have to answer your research questions. So you need to make sure that the survey has enough information. You need to have that research question in front of you and go through it piece by piece as you're writing those survey questions. Typically, students need 20 to 25 questions to do the survey adequately. Assume that you need 5 to 6 of those questions to be demographic questions, and that is going to be age, gender, year in school, ethnicity, things like that. Look at the demographic questions and determine which ones are most important to have answers to understand and answer your research question. Remember, the demographic questions are going to be how you start to split out your different respondents into groups. So you're going to be able to compare, like, what do males say versus females? Well, we can't make that comparison unless we ask people, are you male or female? Things like that. So which natural groups are you going to want to divide your respondents into? Make sure that those demographic questions are included. Remember, as you're writing these survey questions, to think about what would be threatening. If I were to ask you, for example, if you're looking at depression and anxiety, if I were to ask you, are you depressed, in a survey, that would not be acceptable, because that is asking you, 1, about your personal health information, and 2, it is considered a threatening question. Anything that someone would feel uncomfortable answering, that we are not asking them in this type of survey. Sometimes you are able to ask those in a survey. However, because our IRB application is going through the exempt process, we can't ask those really in-depth questions. So if you have something that you think people may feel uncomfortable with, think about asking it, in your opinion, how would this happen? Or in your opinion, do you think the following can cause depression and anxiety? Remember it, so we're going to take a step back from the person and we're asking them about in your opinion, how does this apply to the general public? How does this apply to this specific group of people? Keep in mind that most people are going to answer about themselves, but once you put a little bit of distance between them and the question, they feel more free to answer, and the question becomes less threatening. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Also, if you are doing a time frame, if you want to know, for example, how often do you brush your teeth? Cool. People are going to answer that all over the place. Most people are going to answer it based on the last 2 weeks, but you need to put that in the question. So, for example, during the last 2 weeks, how often did you brush your teeth twice a day? That gives it a time frame, it breaks it down. People are able to answer that. So if you're asking questions about nutrition, exercise, things like that, put a time frame on it during the last 2 weeks, during the last month, things like that, and make it consistent so people are able to consistently answer that question. So in your opinion, based on your experience and within the specific time frame, are great additions to your questions. I will not review your surveys in advance of the due date on the 8th. I will not review them in advance of the due date, but I will grade them as quickly as possible over the weekend, and you should have them early next week. My hope is by Tuesday at the latest, and there will be significant revisions on every single survey. So take your time and do the survey correctly, but expect that there will be revisions. Your grade on the survey will be based on that second review. Most of the instructors base it on the first review. I don't think that's fair to you. Writing a survey typically takes months, and we're condensing it into a week when you have another assignment due. So I want you to do as best you can on this survey now, with the understanding that I'm going to make you go back in and revise it, and that when I do that, I will base your score on those revisions, which also means that when you get those revisions, first you need to be looking for them, and second, you need to make those revisions, because if you don't, and I can see in the comments that I told you to revise it and you didn't, then your grade is going to suffer. So you will get your survey graded first before your methods. Your methods will be graded prior to the submission of your IRB application on the 22nd, but they may not be graded prior to your submission of the pre-IRB application. The pre-IRB application assignment is really meant to help you look through the IRB application and see if you have any questions. The method section needs to be very well written for the research report, but it doesn't need to be as well written for the IRB, except that all the pieces need to be included, if that makes sense. We have time to wordsmith it and make sure it really meets the needs of the research report, and it can be a little rougher for submission with the IRB application. So that's why I'm going to grade the surveys first, because it is essential that the survey be good before you submit it to the IRB. Here's the deal with the survey. Why am I going to be so nitpicky with the survey? Why do I want you to do it right? Because the IRB is going to review your survey. They're going to review everything else, but they're really going to review the survey. And if they start to see questions that cause concern, then they're really going to review the survey. The IRB has to approve your survey before you can send it out and start collecting data. If they get your survey and they think, yeah, no, this is a no-go, then this is a no-go. We have to make revisions. You cannot send anything out without IRB approval. So that's why our focus is on the survey. Do your methods well. Do your methods as a group. The method section needs to be 1 page double space, if that. So do it as a group. Use your time wisely, or else you're going to use your time to combine into one method section with the IRB application. So use your time wisely. Use your time wisely as a group to write the survey. You are writing the survey as a group. You have one survey. Use it well. No more than 25 questions. Make sure all the questions count. You cannot answer a research question with 5 questions. You can't. I would say 15 is the low. 15 is the low end, remembering that 5 of those questions are probably going to be demographic questions and 25 is the high end. So keep it between 15 and 25 questions and you should be good. Let me know if you have any questions throughout the week. Those APA assignments have been updated and you should be receiving some feedback on those lit review outlines in the next few days.